You're watching Thriving in Chaos with Brian Benstock and Jay Abraham on CBT News.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. AI is revolutionizing the automotive industry. In the midst of ongoing uncertainty, dealers across the country are feeling the pressure to adapt. So today on Thriving in Chaos, a special segment that we now have on CBT News, Brian Benstock, partner, GM, and VP of Paragon Honda and Paragon Acura, and also dealer principal at White Plains Honda. He's also a keynote speaker. You've seen him all over retail automotive. He does an incredible job for our industry. Together, we'll unpack the challenges, offer strategies, and explore how to leverage AI for new opportunities. So Brian, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to visit me here in the studio from New York.
It's great to be here with you, Jim.
Sure. I very much appreciate it. And this, obviously, we've done so many shows on AI. Dealers are trying to really figure this thing out. There's some dealers that are stand back saying, I don't know if I trust it. Other dealers are all in on it. Probably you are one of them. And so I've heard about your presentation on this very topic. Dealers have actually called me and said, you got to get Brian on to talk about this because you are forward thinking. There are a lot of dealers in the dealer community that look to you, as I said before in our interviews, that say, wow, you got a high volume store, high grossing store, now 3 of them that you're overseeing and running, and they want to hear from you on this because you are one of those, as I said, forward thinkers out there in our industry. So
Jim, I think that's the challenge, right? People look to us for answers. You know, we're seen as thought leaders, and you know they're asking me what's next. And you know, I think that's a challenge. You know, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think AI is going to be a revolution that may even be greater than the Industrial Revolution or the .com revolution. And I think the opportunities and the implications are profound.
So let's, without any further ado, let's jump right in here and talk to us about, from your perspective, what AI looks like and the role that it's going to play.
Well, you know, if we go through the presentation, right, and start out with the presentation. You know, I've got a wonderful history in the automobile industry. I've got a lot of experience in the automobile industry. Our dealerships have done quite well. In fact, our Honda store has been the #1 certified dealership for 20 years running.
Wow.
Our Acura dealership, the same.
That's incredible.
In 2023, we were the #1 Honda dealership on the planet.
Yeah,
and that's
fantastic.
great. But here's the reality. It's not relevant.
Yeah.
It's not relevant today because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And so the presentation is really around, you know, what do you do? How do you thrive during chaos? And the Chinese saying is, may you live in interesting times. Well, these are certainly interesting times.
Yes, they are.
You know,
They really
and so
are.
when we're looking at market disruptions today, as if we didn't have enough to be concerned about, whether it's BEV or it's ICE, we've got political uncertainty, right? You read the headlines today, and you can't get away from the stock market's up, the stock market's down. You know, what's going on in the Middle East? What's going on in Ukraine? What's going on in our own cities, our major cities? You know, New York City, there have been protests. There were protests in California and scheduled protests, and that has an impact on the market.
Of course.
And so we're concerned about those headlines and trying to drive out and push away that noise. And people are asking me, what are you doing in light of all this? And to take a look at this.
In some cases, thousands of dollars more.
Trump has no idea what he's talking about. What he's doing has put us in a very vulnerable position.
Fasten your seatbelts, we could be in for a bumpy ride.
Russia's going to move as a taxi.
A large tornado outbreak.
Record flood level.
New tariffs are in place.
Car prices will rise.
I want to buy a car, but it's too darn expensive.
What is a buyer to do
Honest to God, we don't know how to sell it.
It's unfair for us. We got bills, we got kids.
We're all being exposed to this, right? Our customers, our staff, ourselves. And then on the flip side of that, you've got Jamie Dimon, the head of Chase.
These kids, anyone who's depressed, as long as we don't have like nuclear war, they're going to have an unbelievable life. They're going to inherit. Like people say, their next generation's in bad shape. Really? They're going to inherit a country that's worth $200-300 trillion. They're probably going to live to 120. AI is going to cure some cancers.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be bemoaning their situation. They should be looking at this world and saying, what can I make of it? You know, what can I do better than the folks before me?
So the saying is, it's not what happens, right? It's how you react to what happens. And I'm looking at different OEMs reacting differently to things like the tariffs, right? Look at Toyota. Toyota announces that they're going to have to raise prices. And I guess that makes sense. And you say, okay, well, if everyone's doing it, I guess we'll be okay. And then you get this guy over here.
That could mark the end of China's EV dominance. Elon Musk has just revealed Tesla's 2025 Tesla Model 2 with an unbelievable price tag of under $11,759.
And it's good looking.
Could this be the moment that reshapes the entire automotive industry? What if I told you this price isn't just a marketing stunt, but part of Tesla's brilliant global strategy?
And that's one of the ways that AI is impacting everything, because he's using AI to eliminate factory workers, right, to have less cost, and building what looks like a pretty darn good looking car for under $12,000. And the fact that it's battery electric, I think, gets thrown out the window. It doesn't matter. It's transportation, potentially transportation value. And so people are asking, what do you do in the face of all this? And I think what we have to do is to lean into the data.
Yeah.
I think let the data, not my instincts or my guts, make the decision.
Stick with the facts.
That's it. Stick with the facts. And the data is there's still a nearly 1-to-1 correlation between search and purchase intent, right? So for every 10 people that search, 9 people buy, and that's great news. And then we looked at the search intent, and this is for our store. It's up 2%. So why is everybody down in the dumps? Why is everyone saying this is a return to? It's up, and especially when you consider more data. They say that parts, e-commerce for parts, is going to be one of the 3rd largest e-commerce divisions in the country.
Wow.
Not in automotive, but in the country. Wow. They say the fleet of automobiles has never been older, and the demand for service is going to be high. That's what the data says. So that's what the data says. What are we going to do in light of that? And I think, let's take a look at areas that we have opportunities in, like tires. How many of us are not searching for tires or brakes or oil change near me? These are being dominated by the independents.
Of course.
And I think, so it's surprising how long things take and shocking how fast they happen. This AI revolution's coming at us quickly. And so I want to build a smarter dealership. We have to. We have no choice. And so what the presentation's about is, what can we look to? What can we look at in order to build a smarter future for our dealerships, a more cost-effective dealership? And this is not about employee headcount reduction. This is about taking advantage and harnessing AI for its potential and unlocking the potential in the dealership. And so when we look, the companies, Musk said, the companies that succeed in the future are the ones that most effectively adapt to AI. And so how do I position Paragon and our companies to be taking advantage of this, right? It's not that AI is going to replace people. I think that's the big concern. But we can say pretty accurately that people that use AI and take advantage of AI will replace those that don't. And we were talking before, imagine the carpenter, right, that was using a handsaw. And all of a sudden, this thing came along called electricity. Now he's using a power saw. That didn't necessarily replace the carpenter. It enabled the carpenter to be much more productive. And I think if we look at AI as that opportunity, I think that's a good area for dealers.
No question about it.
So it's not man versus machine.
That's right. That's right. And right now it comes at a time when every dealership, as you know, is looking to get as much efficiency built in those stores as humanly possible, right?
Yes.
Well, in this case, the humanly possible is actually AI.
Well,
right?
I think we have to look at this as a tool. These are tools that we can give to our employees, share with our employees to help them be much more productive. And I think that's really exciting. We can get the machines to do the work that we used to do, but more effectively. And I think that most employees, most associates would welcome that. Take a look at this, right? This is a search that I was able to do. I want to compare Paragon's website to 3 other websites. And a little pitch here for Brian Pash. Many years ago, I went to Brian and I said, can you evaluate our website against the competition? And he charged me a fee, and it was a fair fee. And we paid, and it took him a couple of weeks to come back with a 22-page report. But look at what AI enables me to do.
Hey, can you compare Paragon Honda's website to the 3 closest dealerships, Hillside Honda, Plaza Honda, and Bay Ridge Honda? Compare it in the following areas like SEM and SEO relevance, also price. Give me the strengths, give me the weaknesses, give me the USPs for Paragon versus the other USPs, and then provide areas of improvement.
This now I use Grok. I love Grok.
Yeah.
Grok 3.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah.
The response is immediate.
Correct.
The response is thorough, and the response can change on the fly as the others adapt. We can adapt. This enables us to be uber competitive, hyper competitive within our marketplace, and we could expand that to the city, the state, the district, the East Coast to make sure and compare ourselves to all these different websites. So I think it can give us an incredible opportunity, an incredible strategic advantage. I think AI is a weapon of mass production, and that's the way we want to use it.
Mass production.
Yeah, and so this goes back to Alvin Toffler and Future Shock, a book from the 70s. The illiterate of the 21st century are not going to be those that can't read or write, but those that can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think that is one of the things I think Paragon represents to me. We are willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn, to reinvent, to adapt. And I think that that's going to be key for all of us dealers going. Don't forget what you know, right? Don't forget, but how do you use that now with these weapons of mass production to incredibly improve the profitability, the cost effectiveness, and the productivity of your dealership? That's the question we're asking ourselves.
So it's WMPs.
Weapons of mass production. That's exactly right. And one of the challenges, we kid ourselves. 32% of the dealers say we're using AI.
Yeah.
And well, of course you are. Accidentally you're using it, but are you using it with a purpose? And it reminds me of when we were pushing pickup and delivery back in 2017, and a vast majority of the dealers said, yeah, we have pickup and delivery, and that wasn't really the case. They had Tony on Tuesdays that had a shuttle van and would take you back and forth. But really getting into that and seeing that as something that you offer as a solution for your customers to expand your opportunities. I think AI is the same. Are you doing it with a purpose? And this is AI.
Yeah.
This may look like just another car factory, but it's actually a new micro factory, manned by autonomous robots.
Now these dogs I love. I'd love the opportunity to have these robotic dogs in our lot. And the dogs in the lot would be used for security, right? And they'd have cameras and they'd say, hey, you 3-time loser, you've been locked up 3 times. I'm streaming this live. Better go away. I've contacted the police.
In dense urban cities like Singapore. But here it's going to be different for most car factories. Robots are going to do a lot of the manufacturing, and it's going to be a much more flexible model.
Microfactories reinvent the way cars are made by automating most of the process and building them in a cell rather than along a production line.
This could be the future in which we talk in a couple of years from now.
Microfactories are one of the biggest changes to car making in a generation, and if the concept is proven, it could shape the future of the industry.
Now that's really for the OEM to worry about, but it's profound if the OEMs are looking at manufacturing being completely and radically changed with AI. Shouldn't the dealerships make sure we're not the slow cog in the gears?
Right.
We've got to keep up with the changes so that we can advance with the OEMs to provide that better experience for our customers, right? It's people are asking, but Brian, where do we start? Well, you got to start easy, right? Look at Kodak, right? They asked the CEO of Kodak, they said, why didn't you adapt to this new thing called digital? And he said it was like changing the fan belt on a moving motor, right? As we all know, Kodak had the patent on digital early on, but that was direct conflict with the existing business that they had. They're in the processing business, they're in the paper business, the development business, and with the advent of digital, most of those businesses would be radically changed. So I think they hesitated to get into digital till it was too late. But what happened? What happened, Jim, when they made it easy for people to use their cell phone, right, to take pictures? And you made taking pictures and the development process frictionless. And not only did you do that, you made it widely available to people. Well, it's profound, right? More pictures are taken in a single day today than were taken in the entire history of film photography. There's 5.5 billion pictures taken a day, simply because you put the technology in everyone's hands. And I would ask you, what happens when we put intelligence in everyone's hands? I think it could be equally profound. Remember this?
A Kodak moment used to mean something.
It's a Kodak moment.
Kodak's failure to embrace the digital camera is a lesson of the power of the market. No industry or business can resist change. You have to adapt, even if that means competing with yourself.
And I think that's the lesson. And, how do you do it? Well, you've got to have your core business and stick with your core business model. Sure. But you've also got to adapt to a disruptive business model where you're disrupting your own business inside your business.
Good point.
Where you're going to have a team, a skunkworks team inside the dealership that's relying more and more on AI. They're going to make mistakes. Right. They're going to have improvement. They're going to learn from those mistakes, right. and then set audacious goals. What is it? Ray Dalio, right? Yeah. It's you set audacious goals. You have failure. You have learning. You have success. Yep. And you set more audacious goals. And I think that's the same thing here, that we have to realize that if we don't do that, we could be left aside, just like Kodak, which was it was unthinkable that Kodak would not be around. They're around, but they're a shell of what they used to be. I like also listening to this.
Yesterday, the CEO of Fiverr emailed his entire organization, and he essentially said, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. AI is coming for your jobs, and it's actually coming for my job too. And he said, you must understand that what was once considered easy tasks will no longer exist. What was once considered hard tasks will be the new easy, and what was considered impossible tasks will be the new hard. And I think he has one thing right, which is we all need to master these particular skills. But I think what he has wrong is the possibilities and the opportunities around AI. The more accurate statement is that AI allows you to do any job. What happens when a plumber becomes a coder? When a marketer becomes an accountant? When a designer becomes an engineer? When a mother becomes a doctor? When a child becomes a teacher? Incredible possibilities arise. I don't think we've even started to think about all the implications that all the industries created because of AI. If you think about the automobile created and revolutionized all these industries, from hotels to tourism to food to trucking to energy and insurance. These industries that we never even contemplated. And my punchline is that I think the jobs of the future are going to be unimaginable. The industries that we create will be unimaginable.
So I think we need to open AI up to rank and file, the people that are on the front line, for their curiosity. Hey, boss, I think we can do this. Hey, I think we can send out mass letters to these customers, and the letters can be customized, and they can be scalable. Right. Customized scalability, wouldn't that be great? Well, maybe a biller has an insight that you never thought of before. Right. What happens when everybody has massive intelligence to solve problems in their hands? So I ask, what problems do we want to solve? Right? A DMS. Right, the DMS CDK, for example, is like the book on the shelf that nobody reads. Right. It's data, but what good is the data if it's sitting there, right? And so I've got this barrier wall, and now you've got these AI tools. And what happens if you mix the two? Yeah. Jim, I did a presentation in 2016 where I was imagining this, what I called an IMS, instead of a DMS, an intelligence management system. I love it. And now we've got a visual on this IMS. And take a look at the IMS. You've got your new IMS, when you type in a customer in your CRM, having the ability to go to social media to find out more about the customers, the ability to go to Amazon to find out shopping intentions or patterns with the customer, the ability to go to the banking industry, American Honda Finance, American Honda, NHTSA, to find out more about the customer and or the cars they're driving, to help us serve them better. Right. And imagine being able to go into, or having AI go into your database to be able to scrape to determine what patterns exist there that you and I may not be able to see with our eye. I mean, we all think, well, there's customers in equity and we should talk to those customers. But before they're in equity, how about predictive marketing, predictive analytics, to see in advance what we can't see now, whether that be for parts or service or for
the other cars in that garage, and when they're ready to purchase.
100%. So I think it's really exciting. So what problems are you looking to solve? And one of the challenges for dealers, we were in an advertising group, and the average dealer in the room was getting about 56,000 unique visitors to their site a month. And that's a pretty good number, right? That is a good number. New York Metro and a big area. But the average dealer was doing about 2,000 or 3,000 transactions. So what if you could get any incrementality improvement in that, from 3% to 5% to 7%? Huge. It's massive. You could double what you're doing. And when's the last time you looked up a website with no intention of doing something? And so if we could do a better job there, so how do we solve for that X and numerous others, right? Google told us years ago, know me better. serve me faster, wow me everywhere. And now this is something that we can do. AI will give us the opportunity to know our customers better without it being creepy, to serve them faster, because that's what people want. Come on, get me going.
It's the Amazon. It's the Amazon approach, right?
Amazon Plus, right? And now we're going to have the same means of distribution and the same abilities that Amazon had, and then wow me everywhere. Well, what if you deliver on that promise of scale? What if you deliver on that promise of being expeditious? What if you deliver on that promise of being cost effective?
Right.
You know, I think that's really profound.
Well, not only do you make the deal, but you also keep that customer for life. Because that's now you've got that level of expectation by the consumer that the business that they're transacting with is going to do just that.
Yeah, and I think where Amazon's really got it right, they don't stop, right? They don't settle. You know, when you start ordering something, and you know, I order like many people things on Amazon. All of a sudden, they give you that option. Would you like it today? And you sit there and say,
crazy.
I don't need it today, but okay. And I don't know, you pay extra to get it today, and you say, look at this. They've got this incredible platform. I have massive respect for what they've done, and they're continuing to try and make it better. You know, I think that's the opportunity for us. I want you to take a look. This is I wanted to build a used car ad. I wanted the ad to be SEO relevant in our market. I wanted our ad to be priced against the other cars in the market. I wanted that ad description to show that. I asked Grok, build the ad. It's not relying on your used car manager's gut or cut and paste, and give you generic description, but to give you a relevant description to that car in the market at this time that's SEO relevant. Wow. It's so powerful. Wow. That's what happens when we can mix intelligence with the data. That's right. The game has changed. Yeah. The players have changed. And in 2023, Paragon finished first in the country. I'm so proud of the job that the men and the women of the dealership did. You know, we Ariel and Murat and Charlotte and Anthony Petito, these guys did a fabulous job for us. We beat every public company in the country. And so we thought, well, isn't it, from Queens, New York, the Bad News Bears, we won. And we did it with good customer satisfaction. And we beat every billionaire dealer in the country. But this is a new crop. Yeah. We're going up against Elon Musk. We're going up against Stella Lee. She's incredible CEO of BYD. Yeah. Bringing incredible products. Sam Altman. Right. These are the new competitors. How do you compete against these guys? You know, and now the customers' expectations have gone through the roof. And we still have dealers that are going through a 7-8 hour delivery process, still making customers wait 2 hours, 3 hours for an oil change. And we're guilty of the same, but because we've had the opportunity to do it without being replaced. Yeah. And I'm fearful. That's going to change.
I agree with you. Yeah. I think it will.
So we've got to be out ahead of it. And I've told my team it's time for Paragon to reinvent.
Yeah.
Every brand has to have a strategy. And our strategy is driving evolution.
And driving evolution isn't about keeping up. It's about staying ahead. Let me explain. College phenom Michael Jordan hits the NBA and wins Rookie of the Year. By his third year, he is the league's leading scorer and most popular player. In 1988, Jordan decides a one-dimensional game isn't enough to truly stand out. He focuses on defense, becomes a playmaker, and masters shooting from the outside. Jordan's Bulls go from winning games to winning titles. So ask yourself, why evolve? In 2001, Apple introduces the iMac, its new operating system, and its first retail store. That same year, Apple introduces the iPod and reinvents the music industry overnight. 5 years later, they do it again, disrupting the cell phone industry. Apple evolved from a $9 billion market cap before the iPod to a staggering $2.8 trillion market cap today. We have entered a period of volatility. In 2017, our goal was to grow our business without expanding the footprint of our facility. By 2024, we have done business with an additional 200,000 people. Are you still wondering how we did it? Because the game has changed. The players have changed. The challenges have changed. And opportunities are everywhere.
So, you know, we believe
It's a great video.
Thank you. You know, driving evolution is not waiting for it to drive you.
Yeah.
It's a verb. It's an action word.
Right.
We have to be a part of driving evolution. And you know, most of these breakthroughs, and we're going to talk to Jay Abraham a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Jay has been an instructor for me, a mentor for me for 30 years.
Guy's
right?
an amazing guy, amazing individual.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And he said most of these breakthroughs come from outside of the industry, right? And so what can we learn from other industries that are already adapting AI? So when I look at the factory in Singapore, I have no delusion. I'm not building any cars. I'm not going to build them here. I'm not going to build them in Singapore.
Right.
But what can I learn from that, and how can we make our dealership better? What can we see from other industries? Look at what's going on with click to search. Circle to search.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a friend of mine's in the Netflix series Emily in Paris, and what they're doing in terms of sales of merchandise is unbelievable. And look at this. This was a joke.
Service to 2 more North Texas cities, both
was a
Fort
joke
Worth and Arlington,
a couple
are
years ago.
now homes to grocery delivery of the future.
Not a joke anymore. Right. We're seeing a lot of things go on with drones. Some of them are even good, right?
Which are at 287 Frontage Road in Arlington and also the North Beach.
But how do we adapt? And what can we do here?
To the Wing Delivery website, 14 North Texas cities in all now have these drone delivery options.
Yeah, I think the implications can be profound. But you know, when I was speaking with Jay, he was talking about Viagra, right? And it was originally a heart medication. From what I understand, it has a different use today,
Yes,
right?
it does.
And Ozempic, originally designed to fight diabetes,
yeah.
and it's, if not the #1 medication prescribed, it's #2 because of the obesity challenge that we have here in the United States. You look at the ballpoint pen coming from roll-on deodorant, or roll-on deodorant coming from the ballpoint pen, and so where can we see outside the industry? What can we see outside the industry that we can use inside the industry?
Right.
Back in another lifetime, I was a hockey player.
Yeah.
I played hockey on Long Island, and we were pretty good at it. And you know, Wayne Gretzky was one of the guys we looked up to. And Wayne Gretzky says, "I don't skate to where the puck is. I skate to where it's going to be."
Right.
And I think it's up to people like you, Jim, and people like myself to say, hey, here's where the puck is going to be.
Right.
And let's take our team, let's take our industry to where the puck is going. Where is the puck? Where is the industry going? This is a study from 2017. McKinsey gave it Google. And I happened to be fortunate enough to be at the meeting, and it said one of the biggest areas of contribution, additional contribution to the bottom line, was going to be tires. And at the time, of course we offered tires, but we weren't really in the tire business. It was also collision. We offer body shop work, but we weren't in that business. I came back and I told my service manager, we're going to get into these businesses. and so when Honda came to try and sell us tires, we were going to buy $20,000 worth of stuff. We bought $200,000 worth. And the tires show up.
Right.
And that's my service director, Anthony Petito. And he's sitting there saying, what am I going to do with these tires? I said, put them in people's driveways.
Yeah.
We got into the tire business.
Yeah.
And the same was true for parts now. We heard that e-commerce parts is going to be one of the biggest e-commerce departments in the country. So we got into parts delivery. And this is a little commercial, right? It's showing how easy it is for you to get your parts in New York City.
Yeah.
And
It's
we're
incredible.
using existing technologies out there, like Uber, like DoorDash, to deliver parts to customers en masse. I think these are some of the ways that we can adopt. And now with AI, what's it look like if you have an overnight parts department online where customers can call in 24/7, the parts inventory is downloaded already, the AI bot can tell the customer whether or not we have the part. They can make all the arrangements for the shipment of that part. I think that's a game changer. Profound. The other information earlier on that we talked about was that the service industry was going to continue to grow. Well, right now, the service and parts industry in this country is $800 billion. And while people are talking about tariffs and BEV and stuff like that, what about the fact that we're missing out on 80% of that? Wow. 80% of that industry is going to the independents. And this industry is projected by 2032 to be an $2 trillion industry. That's 7 years. And in my lifetime,
Right.
7 years is
Is it-
overnight,
that's right.
right?
That's right.
And so what are we going to do in the face of the fact that we're missing out on 80% of that business? We're going to go after that. This is a map of Paragon, Honda, and our quote-unquote competitive dealers in the space. And I used to think we competed with those dealers. And, you know, it was really a circular firing squad. I'd fire at them, they'd fire at me. But the real enemy, the real people that we need to take a look at is the independents. And then you say, why is 80% of the business, why are 80% of the service business going to the independents? And all you need to do in your market is Google oil change near me. And when I did that, my marketing company said, "Oh, don't do that, Benstock. That's not how people search. People search for Honda oil change." No, they don't. Right. They don't. They don't search for Honda oil change. They search for Honda oil change near me. No dealer showed up in our market. There's six of us, right? No dealer showed up.
That's incredible.
All the independents. So we're giving away the game.
Yeah.
The independents know this. And the same is for parts and brakes and
We're
transmissions.
literally driving the customer there.
That's exactly right. We're not even in the game.
Right.
So we decided to do a little bit about that. These are the independents in our market. Is it the Honda dealers that are my competition, or is it the independents? And this is an underrepresentation. There's actually more than I've represented here on this map.
Wow.
So what do? We got together with Google in 2017. We shared with them the problem. You know, you got to talk about your problems.
Of course.
You can't sit there and say, many of our colleagues that we spoke about said, listen, my service bays are full. We're doing the job. And we approached it with Google a little bit differently. We said, there's a lot of business out here. We're not getting enough of it. And what can we do? And together, we worked on a solution. You've got to move at the speed of the customer. The whole notion of having to come to a dealership for service is outdated. We're always looking for ways to do everything and anything that a customer would do at the dealership online.
Hey Google, talk to Paragon Honda.
Getting Paragon.
The object, of course, was to take the friction out of the transaction.
An appointment for a car service.
Yes.
If our customers can do this without us, they will. Rather than be disrupted, we want to be a part of the disruption. And the interesting thing, this came about because somebody sent me an Alexa. And when the Alexa came, I didn't know what to do with it. And I plugged it in, I put in some information, and I said, well, let me shop, let me try. And I talked to Alexa, and I said, order I love coffee, right? I love coffee, you love coffee. Sure. And I said, order coffee, well, what would you like? I'd like Acura K-Cup coffee. And do you want 24 or 42? I said, I'll take the 42. And they said, give me your password, 1234. And that was it. Okay, your order will be sent. I forgot all about it. The next day, about 10:30 in the morning, a box of coffee comes in. Now, this is commonplace today. It was profound because I concluded successfully a transaction without clicking, without swiping, with voice. Right. And so I thought, what are the implications? Jim, anybody that was at Paragon at the time can tell you, I was doing this demonstration for a number of people. Come in, look at this. I had 24 boxes of coffee stacked in my office, right? 24 boxes. But I want to learn, right? And Google was agnostic. So, Amazon was agnostic. Some of the coffee came from one distributor, some came from another. They were all Starbucks K-Cup coffees, but it was really the person that could meet the customer demand the quickest for the price point that they were offering. Got the deal, right? I said, wow. And so when we went to Google, how can we make service frictionless for customers? And I'm proud to say we've serviced a lot of cars and made a couple of dollars, but more importantly, I think we've earned some customer loyalty. I mean, I don't want to go sit in your service department and watch your whatever television show's on. If I'm right wing, it's the conservative. It's a left wing show that's on.
Somebody off.
Right. So you're always pissing somebody. You know, it's funny. I was at the JM Lexus a couple of years ago, and they told me that they had Fox up on the right-hand side and CNN on, they had Fox on the left-hand side and CNN on the right-hand side, and people complained about that. You've got to switch it, so they actually switched it. But I noticed at JM Lexus, and I have never seen a service department as great as this. It was beautiful.
Unbelievable operation.
They had a putting green there, but customers were still frustrated waiting. And so what are we going to do? And the answer for us was to eliminate the wait altogether, really, to adopt, look at what Amazon was doing and take the friction out and to adopt and eliminate the notion that a customer
Do you
has
feel
to
as
come
though
to
there's
us.
other retailers that we just talked about, or I should say other service providers out there, especially that map of a sea of red, Are they getting it better than dealers are currently? Is that do you feel as though they're using AI, they're using all of these new techniques better than today's retail dealer, and that's why they're getting the business?
You know, I think today's retail dealer is really resilient. I think they've historically got the business because they were more proximate. You know, there's a lot more of them. They're on every street corner. And so the challenge for us was, how do we put a dealership on every corner? And I asked it, when we had this great imaginary round table, and we had Scholes from Starbucks there, and we had Jeff Bezos there. Imagine.
Wow.
We imagined
That's
that.
pretty good.
And we had our finance manager, and we had a service manager, and our parts director, and we had all the other managers, and we were asking them, what should we do? What should we charge? And of course, the F&I guy said, we have a package, and we'll stop that. And the sales manager was only concerned about his department not paying for it.
Of course.
But when we asked the question of Scholes, if you were going to put a Starbucks in Manhattan, where would you put it? And he said, well, on every corner. And we said, well, how do we put a Honda dealership on every corner? And the answer, of course, was the phone, right? Because the phone gives you the ability to put a Starbucks or a Honda dealership in everyone's hands. And then we asked the question of what do we charge? We asked Mr. Bezos, and this is imaginary, I didn't have Mr. Bezos in our office, and he said, well, I've done pretty good with Prime by not charging anybody. And it was an experiment for us that we didn't charge our customers, and we still don't charge for pickup and delivery.
Wow.
And the advantage, we thought, was the unbeatable advantage is, what can another dealer do? Can they do it freer? It's free. And if we can provide a great service and there's no cost for it, which we
Huge
do,
advantage.
we think it was a good advantage. But now the time to reinvent is out there, right? Because now we've got AI coming into the fray, and what do we do? You know, we generated a bunch of profit with them. And there's a story of acres of diamonds, Jim. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story.
No.
Story goes, and it's a true story. The story goes, there's an African farmer, and he's been not a good farmer, and he keeps seeing foreigners come to Africa, and they're exploring and finding these diamond mines in Africa, and they're finding their fortune. And he speaks to his wife, and he says to his wife, we're going to sell the farm. We're going to sell the diamond farm. We're going to sell the farm in search of diamonds. And he buys a diamond mine, and he buys this mine, and it's a barren diamond mine. He loses his money. He buys with the remaining money another diamond mine. Same thing happens, and he goes broke, and he ends up committing suicide. It's a tragically sad story. Later on, somebody goes to his former farmhouse, and they're invited into the house by the new owner, and they look at the mantle and they say, hey, what's that on the mantle? And the farmer says, oh, it's just a rock. The lawn is littered with these rocks. He goes, let me see that. And he looks at the rock and he says, that's not a rock. That's a diamond in its purest form. And it's a true story. The farmer, the irony is, the farmer sold his farm that was literally littered with diamonds in order to search for a diamond mine someplace else. And my mentor, Paul Singer, told me that story.
Wow.
He told me that story when I wanted us to buy another dealership. And he said, Brian, the diamonds are right underneath your feet. You don't have to go someplace else. You just have to dig. And I think the same thing is true with our DMS, right? When CDK had that difficulty, and it can happen to anybody. Didn't it show us the value of our database?
That's right.
Didn't it show? And if a dealership was to sell, right? If I bought a dealership, I bought it from Mrs. Singer, my partner. What did I pay for? I didn't get the bricks. I didn't get any of the real estate. I got the right to sell Hondas. That was one. And two, I got the database. So in essence, I was betting that I could do something with that database in excess of what I paid for the dealership. I would say, doesn't AI give us the opportunity to unleash the acres of diamonds right beneath our feet?
That's right.
And
That's a good way to look at it.
I think it does. You know, the traditional road to the sale, I mean, we've got many of our vendor friends on here. I think I'm looking to consolidate. Less is more. To use the intelligence and reduce a number of those vendors, to make it simple, right? Because each and every stage and each and every step of the vehicle cycle, the trade cycle management, impacts the others. So how can we use AI? How can we use AI to unlock those patterns, what customers right now, and have the AI agents going in and unlocking it for us. So we're working with some of the guys at VinQ from the used car perspective. What insights can we get with their AI to help us understand these are the cars that are highest value, the highest turn in your database, and automate contacting them to bring them in to complete a trade cycle management process. And this, I think, is really profound. How do you contact them? Because every dealer in the country knows about trade cycle management to some extent. Every dealer in the country knows about, or should know about, data mining. But I think, what can we do with data mining with AI agents?
Facebook was originally for Ivy League university students, and Amazon originally only sold books. Okay, now we've got a niche. We can go through the 5 biggest opportunities for making money with AI this year, starting with AI agents.
AI agents.
Agents are emerging as...
Agents are the thing everyone is talking about.
More AI agents. The opportunity for agents is gigantic.
Think of it this way. If ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, etc. are like the brain, the AI agents are like the body that can actually go and do things on their own. For example, here's an agent that can match resumes to job posts and apply to jobs automatically. There are hundreds and thousands of businesses that are looking to use AI agents this year, and you can build them even with no existing coding or tech expertise. You can go to websites like crewai.com and start building AI agents that can execute specific tasks for businesses in your target niche. Things like sales, marketing, analytics, or even finance. With sales AI agents, they help you do things like analyze the score of a lead by looking at things like interactions, engagements, or even patterns. This way, your team knows what leads to prioritize and which leads to ignore. The last thing you want to do is pay sales reps to talk to leads that won't ever convert into customers. And when it comes to marketing, everyone knows that personalized experiences convert better. With marketing-driven AI agents, they can help you personalize the copy, the content that you're showing to each individual, which will cause you to convert more of those visitors or followers into leads and customers. You can appeal to different audience segments, which will help improve your conversion rates as well. With analytics, AI agents can help pinpoint the right kind of traffic that's generating the best revenue for you. Just because one customer buys from you and another buys from you, it doesn't mean they're equal. The first customer may come back 10 times and continually buy from you, while the second customer may only buy once from you. You ideally want the right customers that keep buying from you over and over again. AI agents can help you find them by telling you where to focus your marketing efforts. When it comes to finance, AI agents can tell you the lifetime value of your customers and your campaigns. It can even show you which campaigns create the highest lifetime value and which campaigns aren't profitable, so that way you can stop the bleeding and focus not just on revenue growth, but profitability.
Well, it's profound, right? So there's a company out there, and they showed us this sales tool that they have, and they showed us the call, and basically you've got this call, and listening to this call, this is kind of boring, but I can tell you that the AI agent handling the call handled it with proficiency and had a successful outcome. And I don't think that's what's profound. But now you've got this call, and this call was also handled with proficiency and had a successful outcome. And then you had this call that was handled, this is an appointment for service, and this call was handled efficiently and had a successful outcome. And then there's this call that happened successfully and an oil change appointment was made. And the profound part of this is there's no human involved in this. The cost of sale is 0. This is 4. It could be 40. It could be 4,000. Right? How do I compete with this? You know, that's the question. How do you compete with this going forward? Right? So I think that's one of the challenges.
And the more and more consumers are working with AI across all different platforms, they're more comfortable with it.
They are.
I mean, now when you call up Delta, you call up many, American Express or whatever, they'll say, the line is 5 minutes long. Would you like us to call you back? I always press, 1. Give me a call back. I won't have to wait online.
So Jim, we talked about, most of these changes coming from outside the industry. These things that you're talking about have been going on for a long time, but I think we have been slow to adapt to this. We have the expense, we're comfortable having the expense, whereas some of the other bigger companies that are in even more competitive businesses and industries than we are in, realize they've got to cut some of the cost and reapply the cost someplace else. And we're now only looking at that and saying, hey, how do we adopt some of these technologies? I think for me, my formula that we generated many years ago with a buddy of mine, Andrew, the most valuable transaction is a vehicle exchange. And we call it E equals PO squared. What I wanted to do was to come up with something for our dealership that, regardless of what the competition did, it would make us risk-proof. I mean, to reduce the risk that's out there, a competition-proof. They could have midnight sales, they could have barbecues, and whatever they did, it wasn't going to work. And I got the idea from Vince Lombardi. He was the master of the power sweep, and it didn't matter. You knew they were going to run the power sweep, but they were just so good at it. No matter what, you were practicing 2 weeks before the game with Green Bay. They were practicing 365 days a year. So you knew what was coming. You just didn't know if it was going to go to the left side or the right side, and there was nothing your sorry backside could do to prevent it. Well, this is sort of the same. If we can do a better job mining our data from our customers, we can harvest the most profitable transactions in the database, and in doing so, we feed our new car department, our used car department, our parts department, our service department, multiple times with that one transaction. I think it gives you the biggest holistic lift that you can have, and I think that's what was profound. For us, the math is really incredible. We have about 11,000 customers or so in equity at any given time.
Wow.
And what if you could convert at 10% that number of customers per month?
Oh my gosh.
And it's 1,000.
Game over.
It's 1,000 new car sales, right? And about 68% of those, Jim, are going to have a trade-in. And so that's about 770 customers are going to have a trade-in. So you take, what would you earn on 1,000 new car deliveries?
Oh my gosh.
At your average gross. What are you going to earn on 700
It's
deliveries?
millions in gross profit.
Millions.
Millions.
And then the repair order for the, because we certify every Honda we can certify. And the average cost of certification is about $1,800. We retained 72% of that, thereabouts. So you've got another $1,300. So you add the average upfront gross, the average new car gross, the average used car gross, and the average service gross. And those transactions can be $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 per transaction, depending on the dealership. Some much higher, some a little bit lower. But if you're talking about those numbers for us, the opportunity is in excess of $100 million a year.
That's incredible.
Can you imagine that? And our good old friend Joe Verdi says, if you don't like that number, cut it in half. Would you get up early and work late for $50 million a year? Of course we would, Joe. If you don't like that number, cut it in half. Would you get up early and work late for $25 million?
That's right.
And of course you would. But when I got around some of the big thinkers at Google, we said, what if it wasn't 10%? What if it was 20% or 30%? And this has been sort of my mission to go after. This is our acres of diamonds. And again, as people say, what are you telling people about it? It doesn't matter. You can't. These are my diamonds. These are our diamonds. These are under our feet. And the better the job that we do harvesting them, the more likely we can get.
As an industry.
Yeah. And I tell this story. There's this guy, Mel Fisher. And Mel was, he had from what I understand, a scuba
I grew up in South Florida. He was, he was like a hero down there.
He
was
had
amazing.
I'm glad you know the story.
Yes,
he had a scuba shop in California. He sold it to go look for this buried treasure that was lost in the 1700s in the Caribbean. And even before the DMS, the Spanish kept pretty good inventory. They had a pretty good inventory control system, and they literally had all the gold and silver bars registered, and they knew it was there. And he was under the understanding that there was about $200 million worth of gold and silver on this vessel that was never found. And so I think there's parallels there. He went there, and from what I understand, after a couple of years, he found $1 million worth of treasure in one of the, but it wasn't the main one. And I think it's analogous to me, because I've had my victory, $1 million victory, let's say in the car business. And a couple of years later, we had a $5 million find, and they celebrated and bought a bigger boat. And I've had the equivalent of that in our industry. I had some success, for sure. But it wasn't the big success. And then from what I understand, he lost his son in one of the dives. He got the bends and died. But there was a $20 million fine. And they thought he would stop. And he said, no, that wasn't the mission. I love people that are mission-driven. It wasn't the mission. And sure enough, as the story goes, they found a giant cannon. And they knew when to find a cannon, that the cannons were thrown overboard when a ship was in danger because of the weight of the cannons. And from what I heard, they circled around to find the next cannon. They found the next cannon, so that told it the direction. And eventually they found the...
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Cargo, right?
Yeah.
The $200 million worth of gold, but it wasn't 200 million. It was nearly $500 million worth of gold. So this is my mission, is to try and unlock that for the Paragon stores and for our family there that deserve that. And the treasure's there. I know it's, I have the data, right? I said, we started out by talking about thriving in chaos. The data tells you what you've got there underneath your feet, and now it's just a question of getting it. So you know, Jay Abraham talks about, you know, it's exponential thinking. If the same opportunity cost, advertising cost, sales activity can give you a much higher rate, you know, where the growth is exponential. It's not 10 plus 10 plus 10 equaling 30, it's 10 times 10, times 10 equaling 1,000. And I think that's what we're looking at. Imagine this. This is LaGuardia Airport. And imagine having a communication strategy that enables you to get the plane to take off from your airport. And it's communicated from the tower the entire time. And all the efforts are to get that plane to come back to your airport to service and to purchase again. And when they do return to your airport to purchase, 2 planes take off. And then the 2 circle, and when they land, 4 planes take off, and then 8, and then 16, and then 32. It's exponential. And I think with AI, we actually have the opportunity to have a communication strategy with every plane in the sky, in our market, in our DMS, in our IMS. And we all know, contact them on anniversary, contact them on the birthday, contact them for service intervals, contact them if there's a recall. But what can we do? We put our thoughts to it to have an effective communication strategy that's customized, but that reaches not just what you see here, but every single customer in the database. You know, the 100,000, 150,000 customers, to contact them at strategic intervals relevant to them. And I think that's what really gets me excited. And that's
no question.
We're looking to use AI for.
There's no question. It's an incredible presentation. It's everything. It's lived up to everything that I heard about it. And what take? I should say, what are the OEMs? What's their take on AI and its future? I know you are in contact with obviously the people at Honda.
Well, the OEMs, you know, certainly have to be involved in it. You know, and they don't speak specifically of what they're doing. They'll roll out something, and I know that they're integrating it in what they're doing. I'm trying to control what I can control, and certainly they're going to use it for inventory management. And that's the wonderful thing about AI. Each of us can look at the same dealership and look at different parts of the dealership and say, hey, I'm a cost cutter. I want to use AI to reduce costs. I'm a fixed ops guy. I want to be able to use this to distribute more parts. I am a variable ops guy. I want to be able to use this to sell more cars. You know, I was speaking with some of the guys at VinQ the other day, and I said, isn't it true that we have the technology now to take, let's say I have 300 cars in inventory. Is it not true that I could sell all 300 cars in 30 seconds to the right person using AI? Is it not true? And he thought for a second, yeah, that's true. And I could sell them for the asking price. Is that not true? And he said, yeah. So isn't that profound? I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. Let me say that. But if it can be done, I'm going to try and do it. And I think it can be done, for sure. I think the problem is many of us think we've maxed out what's possible. Many of us are concerned and afraid. And I have concerns and fears, but we've got to turn that into what do we do with the information we have. And I'm excited about the future. I think the future is going to be pretty special.
Yeah, no question about it. Brian Benstock, thank you so much for coming in. This is, I know it's going to be very enlightening for a lot of the viewers, a lot of the dealers that are watching this, a lot of the managers. You're obviously a forward thinker on this very topic. There's a lot of dealers that are concerned, maybe nervous in this area.
I'm concerned, I'm nervous. We don't have all the answers. We're looking for strategic partners in AI to help us at the dealership. You know, reach out to us and say, hey, we think we can help you with some of the things you talked about there. Because we think that's critical, that we collaborate. You know, this, again, it's not a circular firing squad. It's not me versus the competition. It's me doing the best job I can with what we have.
Right.
And that database beneath our feet is really our acres of diamonds.
That's right. That's right. I want to thank you so much for joining me on the show. It's, as I said, it's going to be very enlightening to a lot of people that are watching. I know we're going to probably get a lot of comments from it, so we'd love to have you back to talk about what those comments are.
For sure.
And where you see this going.
You know, keep in mind we're in kindergarten with this, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the very beginning, and I think it's incumbent upon dealers to work with other dealers on developing this. You know, you're in no danger of tripping on this by yourself.
That's right.
And some of the big companies like Symphony that are out there, and Grok, and what role can they play in developing these large language models that would help us to do a better job communicating with our customers?
No question about it. Thanks so much. Awesome.
Thanks for watching Thriving in Chaos on CBT News.